Good morning. Welcome to our reflection for Friday morning, the first Friday of our kayaking trip down the river. River behind me, the beautiful River Murray, flowing through South Australia. We're getting down there. We're at where are we? We're nearly at Waikerie, and we've got a service this afternoon with the congregation at Waikerie at their Riverside Park, and we're looking forward to that this afternoon. And anyway, this morning and today it's Anzac Day, and our reading is the resurrection description in the Gospel according to Mark. In terms of ordinary Australians going to a ceremony or a religious service of some kind, today is quite a phenomenon. In country towns and cities across the nations, there will be large attendances. There will be reverence expressed by the general public. There will be prayers said by many Australians today. These will be held at town war memorials. You would have seen them. You probably have them in your town or your city or your suburb. They were built mostly by grieving communities following World War I, mainly because the bodies of their loved ones lay in battlefields over the other side of the world, and they couldn't bury them in a local cemetery and have a headstone as people would have wanted to do. And so they got together as a town and they built a war memorial as a substitute for a funeral and for having a body with them and having that place to go and grieve in the cemetery. So they really kind of substitute personal memorials built together for everybody in the town, because the bodies of their loved ones lay, of course, in battlefields on the other side of the world, unable in those days to be retrieved and returned for burial. Some families were told that their sons and husbands, fathers and brothers were missing in action and presumed dead. In these cases, there wasn't even a body to honour. And yet we humans want, don't we, something, or we want some tangible place to honour our dead. We grasp onto something. We cling to it. We want to tell their stories there. We want to try to make sense of it all. Of course, we can't make sense of death, but we do want to try. Now, here's the point with Easter. It's a bit like that for Jesus' friends too. They go off to mourn and to honour him, trying to redeem some meaning from the meaninglessness of death. And they are told when they get to the tomb, which seems to be disturbed, they're told rather abruptly, he's not here. Why do you seek the living among the dead? A prominent theologian observed recently how we as a society love to mourn and grieve publicly. It helps make us feel less anxious about, our own lives and, of course, our own deaths. But the gospel refuses to be a tragedy. If it was, it would require heroic behaviour from us, but it does not. The gospel is not a tragedy. If it was, it would require heroic behaviour from us, but it doesn't. One of the lessons in the Gospels and in the entire New Testament is that Good Friday was just one day, but Easter dawn opens out, stretches out forever and ever. Paul says that our stories of suffering, the stories of tragic loss which we want to tell, our grief, these things have a place in Christians' lives. They're not He doesn't pretend they're not real or necessary. But he says we don't grieve as those who have no hope. Here we are at Hope 25, and this is about hope. Hope that is inspired by belief in the resurrection of Jesus, which can be our resurrection too, relativizes suffering, grief, death, mourning, and tragedy to the point where it doesn't dominate our lives. It doesn't mean that people don't suffer. It would be nonsense. It would be totally bourgeois and wrong of the church to say, well, there's no need to grieve. People grieve, but we can be inspired that these are relativized by the resurrection. In the end, death is swallowed. I want to tell a little story. Tony Campolo told this story. He grew up in a place where they had row houses in the eastern seaboard of the United States, and he used to play along these row houses corridors as a little boy. And there was an old lady who he and his friends were terrified of because she'd come flying out of her house and her flat door and wrap them around the shins with an umbrella or a walking stick or something, and yell at them. And she was generally crotchety and quite, for little children, terrifying. One day when he'd just become a Christian as a teenager, he was walking past her door and he heard crying. And having just become a Christian, he was moved with compassion, of course, and he went in and he sat with her. And eventually she showed him a picture, and the picture was of a beautiful young man and two young boys, one on each knee. And she said, "This is my family." And the staff at the concentration camp forced me to stand outside the chamber while they were dying and listen to their death. And Tony Campolo realised then, and a little bit later, that elderly lady died. And Tony Campolo's question, and he's a Baptist minister, he said that old lady would have died with a fair bit of bitterness and anger still in her heart. But do you think God would condemn her for that? No. And how long has she got to get over it? Exactly forever. Paul says our present sufferings will not be worth comparing. One day will not be worth comparing. There will be a point in every Christian's life, in every person who turns to Christ's life, there will be a point in which whatever has happened to us will not be worth comparing. We will remember it as though it happened to someone else because of the resurrection.